Now, obviously, we're not saying that J.D. Vance killed the Pope. All I'm saying is that if I were J.D. Vance, I would be going through some very deep existential dread right now that would pretty much consume the foreseeable future, because literally one of the last things that Pope Francis did before passing away from a stroke was meet with J.D. Vance, despite initially brushing off his visit. So yeah, we know, it's a weird way to start an episode after the Pope dies. And yes, we'll get to DUI hire Pete Hegseth screwing up again later in the episode.
Whiskey Pete.
A few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax.
But the death of the Pope is made far, far worse by the fact that, general criticism of the Catholic Church aside, Pope Francis was one of the best popes to ever don the white sukkito. Even it's the little hat that they wear. Even using his final public address to call for a ceasefire in Gaza and continued criticism of leaders who divide instead of unite.
Yeah, the bar is very low, but he definitely cleared it.
Yeah, and here's what the Pope said on Easter, and actually I'll let Elliot read this since he was at least raised Catholic. While I have goat heads tattooed on me, I might literally catch fire. So here's some of Pope Francis's final speech on Easter Sunday.
What a great thirst for death, for killing, we witness each day in the many conflicts raging in different parts of our world. How much violence we see, often even within families, directed at women and children. How much contempt is stirred up at times towards the vulnerable, the marginalized, and migrants. I express my closeness to the sufferings of Christians in Palestine and Israel, and to all the Israeli people and the Palestinian people. The growing climate of anti-Semitism throughout the world is worrisome. Yet at the same time, I think of the people of Gaza and its Christian community in particular, where the terrible conflict continues to cause death and destruction and to create a dramatic and deplorable humanitarian situation. I appeal to the warring parties. Call a ceasefire, release the hostages, and come to the aid of a starving people that aspires to a future of peace.
And he was also pretty progressive on a lot of issues that wouldn't make sense to American Christians, Catholic or otherwise. We just got a different brand of it here.
Yeah, and they hated him for it.
Yeah. Now, he was also very outspoken on climate change and called pollution a sin. And that was right after he was inaugurated at Pope. So this goes back the entire time. He was also constantly on Trump's ass about how he treated migrants. So yeah, it does suck that this guy's gone, because for the last 10 years or so, you could at least fall back on, well, the Pope actually thinks that your actions are in direct opposition with the religion you claim to love. And he is the voice of God on earth.
Well, for Catholics at least.
Sure.
For other people, he's the devil incarnate.
And for some Catholics as well,
yes,
depending on their political leanings. But that also, all of that, ironically, made him one of the most controversial popes, at least among American conservatives. And this isn't even a recent Trump-induced psychosis, though the vitriol has obviously increased over the years. But even back in 2014, conservatives halted a bipartisan House resolution that simply congratulated Pope Francis on his election to the position.
Damn, petty.
Yeah. At the time, the resolution only received 19 Republican votes, with a GOP official at the time stating that the Pope is, quote, too liberal, and, quote, sounds too much like President Obama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then, fairly early on during the 2016 election, Pope Francis hears that racist shit that Donald Trump's spewing and says, well, clearly that guy's not Christian.
Yeah, who could look at this man and say that is a man of God?
Now, mind you, this was before Trump was even a shoo-in for the Republican nomination, and the Pope he'd seen enough.
Yeah, I'm calling
it, yeah. Let's take a quick trip back to 2016, which will be especially interesting to anyone who doesn't remember the first Trump administration, as well as some of us who are haunted by it to this day. Here's NPR from February of 2016. On Thursday, the pontiff criticized Trump for the proposal at the heart of his campaign, a pledge to keep people from crossing into the United States illegally by building a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. I'd just say that this man is not Christian if he said it in this way, Francis told reporters in a mid-flight press conference after a trip to Mexico. A person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be, and not building bridges is not Christian, Francis said. Trump wasted no time firing back. If and when the Vatican is attacked by ISIS, which, as everyone knows, is ISIS's ultimate trophy, I can promise you that the Pope would have only wished and prayed that Donald Trump would have been president, because this would not have happened, Trump said in a statement released by his campaign. For a religious leader to question a person's faith is disgraceful.
Wow.
I am totally Christian, guys. Come on.
Then there was, of course, Trump's first photograph with the Pope after winning the 2016 election and becoming president of the United States. Yeah, Pope looking thrilled.
Relatable.
Definitely the happiest he's been in a while. And he was also extremely critical of family separations at the border and stated back in 2017 that the greed of a few is adding to the poverty of many others, and also that he was dismayed over the indifference of society towards poor people. But let's jump forward a bit, because if you want to know how the GOP has viewed Pope Francis over the years, there are plenty of charts, graphs, and polls that show a very noticeable decline in conservative approval of Pope Francis among Catholics. Last year, as it was becoming more and more obvious that the world was turning increasingly authoritarian, and with the likelihood of yet another Trump presidency increasing, Pope Francis issued a stark warning about the state of democracy. So here's Reuters from last July.
Pope Francis denounced populist politics and what he called the dross of ideology on Sunday, warning that democracy was not in good shape in many parts of the world. Speaking at an annual Roman Catholic convention on social affairs, Francis said many people felt excluded from democracy, with the poor and the weak left to fend for themselves. It is evident that democracy is not in good health in today's world, he said. Ideologies are seductive. Some people compare them to the Pied Piper of Hamelin. They seduce you, but they lead you to deny yourself, he said, referring to a fairy tale where a rat catcher uses his magic powers to steal away a town's children. He said, the crisis of democracy afflicted various nations, but did not give any specific examples. Let us not be deceived by easy solutions. Let us instead be passionate about the common good, the Pope said on Sunday, highlighting the damage caused by political corruption and illegality.
My gosh, I would say that with all these warnings, it's almost like the voice of God here on earth was trying to warn us about something. Trump was elected a few months later, sworn in earlier this year, and immediately got to work on his mass deportation plans, which, if you've been following along, the Pope doesn't like too much.
No.
In fact, when J.D. Vance tried to use Catholicism to justify this administration's fucked up immigration policies, the Pope rebuked him immediately. Vance said back in February on Fox News that there is a very Christian concept that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country. And then after that, you can focus and prioritize the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's not a thing, JD.
A lot of the far left has completely inverted that. They seem to hate the citizens of their own country and care more about people outside of their own borders. The British Prime Minister should care about Brits, and the French should care about the French.
Which book of the Bible was that in? So the Pope immediately rebuked him. He criticized him for clearly misinterpreting the religion and sent an open letter to U.S. bishops directly, saying, among other things, the act of deporting people who, in many cases, have left their own land for reasons of extreme poverty, insecurity, exploitation, persecution, or serious deterioration of the environment damages the dignity of many men and women and of entire families and places them in a state of particular vulnerability and defenselessness. The response from conservatives was harsh, though the worst of it was, of course, contained to New 4chan, a.k.a. X, the Everything app. Yeah. But Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, couldn't help himself, responding directly to the Pope and instructing him to stick to the Catholic Church and fix that and leave border enforcement to us.
Human toe, Tom Homan.
Yeah.
Now, as far as Trump's concerned, the Pope's death means a free trip to Rome that he is really, quote, looking forward to. Which is, of course, an odd thing to say about a funeral.
Mm-hmm.
But this, again, has to be very weird for J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
The last man to see the Pope alive. I don't think that's true, but the last meeting he took.
Yeah. All it took was 5 to 10 minutes with J.D. Vance for the Pope, who has been having a rough go health-wise lately, but seemed to be pulling through. All it took was one meeting, face-to-face with J.D. Vance for his body to give up.
Yeah.
And his soul to request a break from all this.
He got that. He survived that pneumonia, and he came back. He was on the mend. He said, there is something to live for. Yeah. He met J.D. Vance. He saw the back of his hair, and he said, what? This is a grown man? What?
What is that hair?
You've only been Catholic for 6 years? Wait, you converted to Catholicism?
No, yeah.
And it wasn't because you married into it? That's bizarre.
Yeah, the Pope knows more than anyone else that adult Catholic converts are all fucking psychos.
Mm-hmm.
He knows.
But again, gotta be weird to meet. Look, anyone. to meet anyone and have them die moments later after meeting you has got to feel weird.
If you have a conscience, it would bother you.
But if you're meeting the Pope and then he fucking dies, I don't know. It's crazy. If JD had any amount of self-reflection left behind, you would think that he would be pretty moved by this. The Pope should be his superhero. He only converted to Catholicism a couple years ago, and that was well after the woke Pope was behind the wheel.
Yeah.
And then again, JD Vance literally called Donald Trump Hitler, and now he's vice president in charge of making people say thank you.
Have you even said thank you yet?
Well, JD,
Please.
you met with the Pope after he criticized you for weaponizing the religion, and after he initially tried to ignore your visit, and then after meeting you, he immediately died of a stroke.
Yeah, he suffered psychic damage.
Uh-huh. And there is no second health bar. Actually, this was the second health bar. Because he survived pneumonia.
He did.
And then came back.
I was just joking about this like yesterday. I'm like, yeah, all these people were excited for him to die. And he's like, no, I don't think so. And then I think I jinxed it too. Me and JD, we killed the Pope.
Yep.
But hey, for what it's worth, which is nothing, that bad butch bitch body, God damn it.
You know the one.
Bad built, butch body, bleach blonde, bad built, bleach blonde, butch body from Georgia,
Yeah.
Marjorie Titan Green, posted the following just after the news of Pope Francis's death. Today, there were major shifts in global leaderships. Evil is being defeated by the hand of God. Holy shit, Marge.
Yeah.
Man, she didn't call him out by name. I guess she could be talking about anyone. Who's to say?
I mean, moments after it's announced that the Pope has died, and she sends a tweet or whatever they call it now about how a huge shift in global leadership and how evil has been defeated, especially after, a long time of criticism.
Yeah.
It would seem to me that she was targeting him.
Yeah, I mean, and she's a Southern Protestant, and they tend to have the craziest views on Catholics.
Yeah.
They're not even real Christians. They worship a man in Italy. But hey, we're getting a conclave, folks.
Yeah, fire up that DVD player and put in the hottest DVD from last year.
Really,
Conclave.
like some real synchronicity with the release of that movie, which is great.
Yeah.
It's Mean Girls with priests.
Yeah.
These catty priests.
I saw them. They tied his living quarters shut. Because they have to get it ready for the next one. Apparently, he was like, I don't even want to stay in there. He stayed in a guest house.
Oh.
Yeah, humble Pope, woke Pope.
Woke Pope.
That does worry me though, because with everything else that's gone on in the world in the recent years, me and a lot of other people we don't want it to happen, but you'd anticipate that the next Pope is going to be a little more harsh.
I mean, that's what Conclave was all about.
Yeah.
Folks, you're going to want to watch Conclave to learn how the rest of this is about to play out.
Yeah. But anyways, we don't want to put an ad read directly after a story about the Pope dying. So allow me to torture myself with the following story about a bunch of robots running a marathon.
受比赛的同时，注意自己的身体状况，合理安排。我们所有的参赛选手能够跑出好成绩。
They don't even have to suffer through all the muscle aches afterwards. None of the pride.
Yeah.
None of the pride. You don't get any of the pride in doing something.
Nope.
You just get powered down at the end, shoved into the back of a truck and carried away to be analyzed. Though, look, it is nice that they got a medal at the end, forged from the same components as themselves. Hell, that medal might even be made from one of their own family members.
Kind of morbid.
Also, they only ran a half marathon, so boo. And don't get me wrong, for humans, that's great. I'm very proud of you. But screw these bags of bolts.
Clankers.
Here's CNN with more on this dumb bullshit.
More than 20 two-legged robots competed in the world's first humanoid half marathon in China on Saturday. And though technologically impressive, they were far from outrunning their human masters over the long distance. Coming in a variety of shapes and sizes, the robots jogged through Beijing's southeastern Yizhuang district, home to many of the capital's tech firms. The robots were pitted against 12,000 human contestants, running side by side with them in a fenced-off lane. After setting off from a country park, participating robots had to overcome slight slopes and a winding 13-mile circuit before they could reach the finish line, according to state-run outlet Beijing Daily. Just as human runners needed to replenish themselves with water, robot contestants were allowed to get new batteries during the race. Companies were also allowed to swap their androids with substitutes when they could no longer compete, though each substitution came with a 10-minute penalty. The first robot across the finish line, Tiangong Ultra, created by the Beijing Humanoid Robot Innovation Center, finished the route in 2 hours and 40 minutes. The winner of the men's race on Saturday finished in 1 hour and 2 minutes. So take that, clankers.
Yeah. You got to imagine they're just falling all over the place.
Yeah.
You kind of just got to set them in a direction and, you know. And I would have jumped over the thing and kicked one over probably.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that the robots just ended up falling and didn't perform as well as the humans. But I also hate that this is just one more step in the evolution of all these things being involved in all of our lives more and more. Every day I see some stupid AI shit printed out somewhere on a fucking business or a business that I like sharing AI stuff, and it bums me the fuck out. When I see these robots, I'm gonna be very upset, especially with the knowledge that it's probably not AI controlling them, and it's probably a person in a sweatshop somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyways, unless these things are dumping oil in their pants like real runners, they get none of the credit, and they will never understand the human experience. Congrats to all the Boston Marathon finishers, including that one guy who does the locket. He's like, I'm so fucking locked in. He shit himself last year and still finished and then filmed himself with his pants all dirty. He made it this year without doing it.
Okay.
But now it's time after the shitting story.
We wouldn't want to run an ad right after talking about the Pope being dead, but now that we've talked about people shitting their pants, it's time to shout out some sponsors, folks.
Yeah, but wait, hold on. Let's put another break in between because we have to remind you that we are going to get to the Pete Hegseth thing.
Whiskey Pete.
So this episode is sponsored by Tempo. You got to have a good tempo to get a good run on, you know?
Yeah.
So when you think about fast food, you probably think about unhealthy, thawed-out patties dripping with grease. But when you're on a tight schedule and you need to save time, you might not have any other option. Now, if this sounds familiar, you need to check out Tempo. Tempo can provide you with protein-packed fuel to save time without compromising your health goals.
Tempo is a weekly delivery service that delivers chef-crafted meals from a dietitian-approved menu fresh to your door. Tempo serves up fast, feel-good, single-serving meals that are crafted to cook in just 3 minutes, so you can eat well without sacrificing taste or convenience. With new recipes each week that are made with real ingredients and nutrient-rich, they make it easy to keep up a healthy lifestyle. Tempo's perfectly portioned lunches and dinners take the guesswork out of eating well, are fully prepared, and can be heated in the microwave in just 3 minutes. Tempo offers a variety of meals for different dietary and taste preferences, including protein-packed, calorie-conscious, and carb-conscious, and fiber-rich. For a limited time, Tempo is offering our viewers 60% off your first box. Go to tempomeals.com/todaydaily. That's tempomeals.com/todaydaily for 60% off your first box. tempomeals.com/todaydaily. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This episode is also sponsored by Shopify. When we started this show, it seemed like we had to figure out pretty much everything on our own. Scripts, setup, filming schedule, graphics, editing, and the countless audio issues. It was super overwhelming, and every day seemed to introduce a new decision that we needed to answer. So when you're starting off with something new, it seems like your to-do list keeps growing every day with new tasks, and that list can easily begin to overrun your life. Finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything can be such a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify.
Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses all around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. Get started with your own design studio. With hundreds of ready-to-use templates, Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store to match your brand style. Get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. Easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into big money with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/itdaily. Go to shopify.com/itdaily. Shopify.com/itdaily.
All right, now back into the news, and here you go. Here was the biggest story, the one that was only overshadowed by J.D. Vance meeting with the Pope and then the Pope dying.
Meeting with the Pope.
Mr. President, another Pete Hegseth group chat has been exposed. And it was exposed by people within Hegseth's close personal orbit because there were only about a dozen people in this chat, and one of them was his wife. And one of them was his brother.
Yeah, someone snitched.
And one of them was his lawyer. And like 3 of them were guys that worked with him at that Veterans Foundation. And that's half the people in the fucking chat right there. So you'd assume that, those people wouldn't leak the info. And 4 people from this chat spoke with the press. So I don't know. I guess it could be anyone. It really looks like the walls should be closing in on old DUI Pete. Yeah. And we'll get into that in a minute. But first, here's the New York Times with the latest on Hegseth sending sensitive information to people over text, starting with what he shared. Some of the people said that the information Mr. Hegseth shared on the Signal chat included the flight schedules for the FA-18 Hornets targeting the Houthis in Yemen. Essentially, the same attack plans that he shared on a separate Signal chat the same day that mistakenly included the editor of The Atlantic.
I mean, was it just 2 group chats? Maybe
We
there was
don't
even
know.
more.
It seems like, based on the New York Times analysis of this, because as we'll get to, he created this group chat before the inauguration. So it seems, as far as this lines up, it kind of seems like he was just so fucking excited for his first military engagement as Secretary of Defense that he could not shut up about it. And he forgot the #1 rule of war, which is loose lips sink ships. Everybody knows it.
I can't just keep this to myself.
No, he had to share.
Unlike the chat in which The Atlantic was mistakenly included, the newly released one was created by Mr. Hegseth. It included his wife and about a dozen other people from his personal and professional inner circle in January, before his confirmation as Defense Secretary, and was named Defense Team Huddle. The people familiar with the chat said. He used his private phone rather than his government one to access the Signal chat. Jesus Christ.
All about her emails and all that.
They add that Mr. Hegseth's wife, Jennifer, a former Fox News producer, is not a Defense Department employee, but she has traveled with him overseas and drawn criticism for accompanying her husband to sensitive meetings with foreign leaders. The continued inclusion following Mr. Hegseth's confirmation of his wife, brother, and personal lawyer, none of whom had any apparent reason to be briefed on operational details of a military operation as it was getting underway, is sure to raise further questions about his adherence to security protocol.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Mr. Hegseth shared information about the Yemen strikes in the Defense Team Huddle chat at roughly the same time he was putting the same details in the other Signal chat group that included senior U.S. officials and The Atlantic, the people familiar with Mr. Hegseth's chat group said.
Hey, I shouldn't be telling you guys this, but, it wouldn't be that cool if I kept it all to myself.
Yeah.
Who would know? Who would be able to say, hey, Pete, great job. They said you were going to be a drunk piece of shit who didn't know how to run anything, and you proved them wrong.
Yeah.
And the only way to prove that you proved everyone wrong is by telling everyone you can. Yeah, pretty cool, huh? Anyways, as for the fallout, well, kind of just depends on what time of day it is and what mood Donald Trump is in. Because it seemed as though this revelation might have been the final straw to get Pete Hegseth booted from his job. And rumors were circulating on Monday that his time as Secretary of Defense was coming to an end, with NPR speaking to an unnamed official who claimed that the White House had begun looking for a replacement. But the Trump administration quickly threw cold water and all that. Here's from their reporting. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt denied that there's an effort to replace Hegseth, posting on X that President Trump stands strongly behind him. Speaking to reporters at the White House, Trump backed Hegseth and said concerns over the Signal chats are a waste of time.
Here we go again. Just a waste of time.
Why do you still have confidence in
He is doing a great job.
Why do you still have confidence?
Because he's doing a great job. Thank you.
Even if he's sharing
Ask the Houthis how he's doing. Pete's doing a great job. Everybody's happy with him. It's just fake news. They just bring up stories. I guess it sounds like disgruntled employees. You know, he was put there to get rid of a lot of bad people, and that's what he's doing. So you don't always have friends when you do that.
See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter.
Hegseth was likely referring to 4 senior advisors who left the Pentagon abruptly last week. Former Defense Department spokesperson John Ulyat resigned and then published an opinion piece calling the past month at the Pentagon a full-blown meltdown of infighting that is hurting President Trump. 3 other Pentagon advisors, Dan Caldwell, Colin Carroll, and Darren Selnick, were escorted out of the Pentagon and accused of leaking information to the press. The trio then put out a joint statement on X calling their dismissal unconscionable and saying they have not even been told what they stand accused of leaking. All 3 of us served our country honorably in uniform. For 2 of us, this included deployments to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And based on our collective service, we understand the importance of information security and worked every day to protect it, they wrote. And they also added that Caldwell and Selnick are longtime associates of Hegseth, who worked with him at Concerned Veterans for America, a right-leaning policy group.
If you can't trust your fellow right-wing veterans at the Pentagon, who can you trust, Mr. Hegseth?
Sounds like a real mess.
It would be fantastic if it came out that his wife was the one that leaked everything.
I mean, yeah.
His wife and his brother and his lawyer.
It's hot goss.
Yeah.
I can't just keep this to myself.
We do have a little bit of local news to round out the shorter episode for you today. Again, I got family in town, so sorry, thank you. But you know what? I was having a pretty decent Sunday, all things considered, until I saw the news that someone went through downtown Los Angeles cutting down trees.
Yeah.
It's...
like a lot of them.
Yeah, very, very, very infuriating because, well, first and foremost, they help filter the air and also provide a lot of shade and cooling for an area that is almost entirely concrete. It's fucking insane.
Yeah, it's...
Who does this? And by the way, the LAPD, in one of the most surveilled locations in the fucking city, is like, we have no idea. Someone clearly with a fucking chainsaw was going through and no one saw anything.
Yeah.
It's very strange. But here's some reporting from the LA Times.
LA's fragile urban canopy was dealt a vicious blow this weekend when a chainsaw-wielding vandal cut down a number of shade trees along South Grand Avenue and other areas of downtown, according to media posts and photos uploaded to Reddit and Instagram. The Los Angeles Police Department told the Times it had no information about the tree destruction, and an email and phone call to the city's Urban Forestry Division went unanswered Sunday. Social media images showed a number of trees that were severed at the base, while others were cut several feet above the pavement. A few of the felled trees were still connected to their trunks by just a thread of bark or wood. Social media users condemned the culprits, and some noted that the cuts were done just ahead of Earth Day.
And yeah, we condemn them too.
Yeah, this sucks. The city needs more trees than it has, not less.
Yeah, it's like, this like had me so fucking in, because it's another thing where you just look and you're like, I feel so helpless. I wish I could have just stopped someone from doing that. Specifically because trees just take so fucking long to grow to that size. And most of the ones that were cut down were like significant canopies.
Yeah, I mean, this is a serious crime too. Tree law
is serious.
Around, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, other news out of downtown Los Angeles.
Oh,
there was another heist. The SoCal heist streak
I
continues.
did save that one for you for Weekly Weird this week because it's a shorter week. I'm going
to... We'll talk about it then.
But get ready for a heist, folks. Don't read the news.
Yeah.
Stick with us. Don't go spoiling it.
LA remains #1 at crazy heists.
We love our heists here, and no one can beat us. Also, if you're looking for something to watch, I barely keep up with new shows, but I did make sure to get a login and watch the rehearsal and just
Very good.
Go watch it. Just go in blind. He's onto something. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see more.
He's cooking.
He is. Let him cook. Let him cook. HBO, give him the money. All right, that's it for our episode today. We will, of course, be back with some tech news and some weird news and all that stuff. But if you leave the video a like, we would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Shout out to Pope Francis. Shout out the good Pope.
Pour one out.
Yeah.
For Frankie.
That's right.
And get ready for the conclave.
They're going to be pumping that smoke soon enough.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. Do whatever you want. Leave a comment. Watch our other videos. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.